Hello and welcome to the long-awaited, hopefully, return of Ultra Rare. It has been a long time. It has been real busy. There's been a lot going on, but that's not what this pod is about. This pod is about the grids, and truly that's all that matters. Just some quick things with kind of the state of these games. So, I am a little bit on the fence about including PokeGrid on future podcasts. As we know, PokeDoku is just killing it. We have a new tic-tac-toe. We have unlimited. We have master levels. We have the dex entries. We have everything. And unfortunately, PokeGrid is reusing puzzles that they've used in the past. They are not including new DLCs to Scarlet and Violet. I would consider it essentially abandoned. But for my love of it, and just because how much I hate how Doku asks me questions like evolve by item, we're going to continue for now. But time will tell how we continue to kind of deal with that. Anyway, let's get straight into it. We're going to go, I know I've kind of done this in a different order, but I think I'm actually going to go by column, not row this time. So sort of like a number pad, you would imagine. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so row by row. So we'll focus on the left side and then go through Fighting Fairy and Dark for Evolve by Item, Mythical, and Alola. You'll get it when we start going. Let's just get straight into it. Today's puzzle, pretty difficult. Evolve by Item is obviously a vicious one, and so is Alola, actually. For being one of my favorite generations, for some reason I was kind of blanking on Alolan ideas here, but fortunately we did have a couple. So anyway, let's start out with Evolve by Item Fighting. Now, this one took a lot of thinking, and I'm going to be fully transparent, a straight-up guess by the end of it. There are, a lot. There's, Machamp, which I probably could have guessed because Machamp is an evolution by item in Arceus because they didn't have trading in that game, which is important to note. If you ever see a trade evolution, and if you've ever like played Arceus or something, and you know that that trade evolution is in the game, like even if you didn't know how Machamp evolved, if you knew Machamp was in Pokemon Legends Arceus, and you have this question, you know that Machamp must evolve by item. So Machamp qualifies here. Poliwrath is one. Crabominable, like Lilligant, Hisui would have never known these. Sneasler I just went for because I know Weavile is evolved by item, which doesn't seem like it based on my grid, but we'll get there. So I just kind of assumed Sneasler would be as well, and I got lucky. And, of course, I just think of Sneasler a lot. It's just one of those things. Him and Crabominable, actually, but I would have never guessed this wasn't a level up. Sneasler is someone I think about a lot. I really do like Sneasler. But I had no idea about these. I love Urshifu. I had no idea Urshifu evolved by item. Interesting things like that. Again, as much as I like to pride myself on being the pro, I don't know what I can tell you here because, frankly, I don't know this. I just need to re-up on my Doku skills. Maybe I need to study a little bit more. That's really all it can come down to. Any Hoosies. Next box, we have Fairy evolved by item. There's not a lot of these. You want to say Sylveon, but Sylveon doesn't actually evolve by item. There's a couple. A lot of, a lot of late Fairy types just kind of did that. They didn't do very much, level line Fairy type evolutions. We only have Clefable, Togekiss, Alchemy, Slurpuff, Aromatisse, Florges, Wigglytuff, Whimsicott, and Ninetales Alola. Some of these are more obvious than others. Like, to me, I'm a little bit mad I didn't think about Togekiss. I knew that. I'm a little bit mad I didn't think about Clefable. I think everyone knew that. But, again, it's just those niche knowledge areas that you have to have. Sword and Shield is one of those for me. I knew Alchemy. That was pretty simple. Again, just kind of got to study up on these evolved items. These are really vicious, and these will definitely test. I have been in the past, but as of recently, I'm not a super big, genuine Pokemon video game player. I'll do everything about Pokemon, but I haven't really delved into actually playing Scarlet and Violet. So, Doku really tests you here on things like Evolve by Item. This is really something that benefits the casual Pokemon player. Absolutely. And maybe even if you think you're not, able to do what I can do or think the way I can think, you might know this a lot better than me because that's just not my specialty. And maybe I have specialties that someone else doesn't have, and they don't have what I have. I think that's the beauty of Doku and Grid, and that's how you can really let yourself shine. Next up is Dark Evolved by Item. I actually didn't get this wrong. I think I got one wrong somewhere else. I want to say it was, you know what? I put Como-O's lower evolution on Alola Fighting, Pretty basic mistake, but sometimes you just gotta take risks in life. But yeah, I got that wrong. Ended up just Dark was the one I never ended up filling. Again, I knew Weavile. Weavile is, pretty simple. It has the claws or whatever. As we've learned, apparently Urshifu does evolve by item, so good to keep that in mind. I didn't know about Shiftry. I didn't know about Honchkrow. I didn't play the games that were that old, and again, the only way you like moves, I can do that. Typings, I can do that. Weaknesses, all that, I can do that. But when it comes to these nitty-gritty things that you can really only know from playing the video games, that's where I start to falter a little bit. So again, one of those boxes where you just you gotta have the knowledge a little bit. Move on quick from that. Now we're in mythical. We're gonna go mythical fighting. So there's only 4, and there's really only 3 because Keldeo has 2 forms. I always have Meloetta on my mind. For some reason, Meloetta is just such a natural pick for me. But yeah, I mean, this one's just rough. There's no other way to put it. You just have to think movies is one I always do. If there's a legendary type Pokemon that I can imagine, like, I don't know, Meloetta, Shaman, Darkrai, Deoxys, whatever. You imagine these things, and then you think, are they a box art? Then they're probably mythical. That's not always true. The Regis are legendaries, and so is the Loyal 3. But in general, these things will sort of be pretty obvious, which Keldeo is actually a little difficult because Keldeo is part of the Swords of Justice, Terrakion, Cobalion, and Virizion, who are actually all legendaries, I believe. So Keldeo being an outlier there is a pretty difficult one. But if you can keep Keldeo on your mind, which I always tell myself, oh, I'm going to use Keldeo later, and I never do. Keep Keldeo on your mind, that's great. It's water fighting type, one of the only. It'll always do you better than Urshifu. Marshadow seemed to be a pretty obvious one. Had a pretty popular movie. Everyone knows the Alolamons. He has a full art in TCG Pocket. What else can you really say? Again, just think mythicals, think legendaries, and maybe you'll come up with something like Meloetta. Next up, Mythical Fairy. Again, I'm thinking movies. I immediately think Diancie. There was also only 4 here, but in reality, only 2 if we're going on our previous way of looking at things. We have Diancie and Mega Diancie and Magearna and Magearna Original. Magearna just completely slipped my mind, but Diancie Mega was actually the best here, and I can understand why. Diancie is 33%, and I could see a lot of people also seeing the Mega pop up, but it's that kind of thing where it's like in the coding of the site, do they have Diancie Mega classified as still a mythical, or does the Mega remove it from that category just the way Doku sees it? I had faith in the site. I love you, Doku. Please give me a custom board. But all jokes aside, yeah, Megas count toward other Megas don't disclude you from a category. Good to know. But both of the Magearnas were great picks. Basic Diancie was still 33, but that's not even double of the lowest, which is generally means you didn't miss out on much there. And I don't think Doku is as much about these low percentiles as PokeGrid has conditioned me to be. So if you're just proud of getting Diancie, I mean, especially in these mythical fighting and fairies, if you're just be proud to get that box. Honestly, I'm proud of you for getting that box done. It doesn't matter what you did. Last up, we have Mythical and Dark. Again, movies. I knew Zarude. Hoopa Unbound is a really great pick here. Really easy to forget, but pretty basic. Everyone kind of immediately goes Darkrai because he's the mythical Dark type. To me, he's the mythical Pokemon. That's just how I see him. But also, of course, the darkest of Dark types. You type in Dark and he'll pop up. Pretty simple one here, but I mean, again, 86 got this box, which to me is a little bit low because I feel like we can all think of Darkrai. I'm not sure. But, I mean, again, if you can't think of Zarude or Zarudata or Hoopa Unbound, don't do something stupid. Don't try to go outside your box. If Darkrai is the best pick for you, just go Darkrai. There's really nothing I can help you with there other than, I don't know, watch movies. Or don't even watch movies. Just learn about the movies. Anyway, if there's a movie about a legendary seeming Pokemon, it's a mythical Pokemon. That's generally my thought process. Last row, we have Alola, my personal favorite generation, and Fighting Fairy Dark. We're going to start with Fighting. I thought of Komo-o and his line, the fighting dragon types, the pseudo-legendary. Pretty popular. Crabominable was also a big one. Crabominable is an Alola staple to me, and happened to be a fighting type as well, but there were some other great ones. Beware is a super low pick, and I mean, even as low as Marshadow, Stuffle, and Pheromosa, I mean, that's just amazing. And also, Jangmo-o evolves into Hackmo-o, who does get the fighting type, which makes me a little bit salty, but it's okay. Yeah, Ultra Beasts are great. I mean, I will never ever, I think, see a category with an Ultra Beast as a viable option, and that Ultra Beast isn't one of the best answers. Ultra Beasts are absolute wonderful, wonderful picks. Um, yeah, I mean, Como was a basic answer, but for some reason I was just blanking on Alola today. I don't know what's with me. Next we have Alola Fairy. Also, this is a blank. I'm shocked this wasn't the most common. It's Primarina. I went with the starter final. There were some really good ones. Magearna might be hard to remember. I always, for some reason, think Magearna is Gen 6, but it is actually Gen 7. Morlul, Shiinotic are really amazing. I mean, Mimikyu's a really good one. If you can dig down deep and think Mimikyu, I'm proud of you. All of the Tapu's viable. Tapu Lele was actually higher than Primarina, though, shockingly. Cutiefly, Rabombi. I mean, I probably would have thought of Rabombi and thought it was rarer than Primarina and put it in. It's lucky I didn't. But yeah, Alola was a very fairy-centric generation. 6 and 7 were kind of like that ever since the fairy type had just come out. It shouldn't have been too hard to think of something, and I mean, come on, there's the Tapus. So, a little bit. And I'm not going to act like you're dumb for not thinking of the Tapus, because I certainly didn't. But, just, think about it. If you need to, type random letters in, and maybe something nice will pop up. But everyone likes Mimikyu. Think about some of your favorites. I mean, just genuinely, if you are completely at a loss for mods, just start thinking of Pokemon from any category whatsoever at all. If I need to think of a fairy-type Pokemon and I don't know what to do, I just start thinking about pink Pokemon. And then I just start thinking about Pokemon that are strong because fairy-type Pokemon tend to be strong. Just stupid niche categories like that can really take you a long way here. And I bet that's why a lot of people found Mimikyu or the Tapus or something like that. Last up, Alola Dark. Most popular here was the starter, which is Incineroar, but there are some other great ones. Also, I'm totally eating my words on Ultra Beast always being the best, because Guzzlord did not hit hard here. Guzzlord was nearly the most popular, which is pretty shocking to me. The best answers, though, Grimer and Muckalola, which are pretty fun ones. If we were on PokeGrid, this would be a little bit easier, because you could type Alola, and it would just pop up the Alola one's nice for you, but Doku is better than that. But if you just start thinking of Alolan forms, I mean, if you can't think of Alolan original mods, because I understand that's going to be kind of difficult, just think of Alolan forms, and that'll do it for you. I mean, look at this. There are only 2 original Alolan Pokemon that are actually Dark-type. So, thinking about forms isn't so bad. And, I mean, Grimer Alola and Muck Alola are just amazing picks. I probably should have thought of Persian, because I love Alolan Persian. I love Persian. It's whatever. Raticate was only a little more popular. And I think, like, just yesterday, I saw a TikTok about Alolan Raticate, and I held in my mind, I'm like, oh, I gotta use that soon. My brain never even comprehends the idea of Alolan Raticate. It is so far gone from my conscious that I kind of just forgot that it is actually, like, a real thing. So, I just kind of wanted to use that today. And again, have moments like that. Have a moment where you look at a TikTok about a Pokemon that, maybe on the TikTok, they're all talking about, oh, I'll love you forever, my favorite Pokemon that nobody likes. And maybe they say Hydrapple and you think they're a weirdo, but again, you just saw a TikTok about Hydrapple. So maybe keep that one in mind. That's a grass dragon type. Use that at some point, please. Things like that is how you really dig deep and find these answers that you might not be able to otherwise. Although that's it for Doku. It hurts me a little bit that I'm coming back and I'm just showing you me missing a box, but it's okay. And this is part of the reason I like the grid, because I get to miss one and still feel okay afterward. But let's now move on to the grid. Hello, and first things first, this is the primary reason I decided to come back to the pod today, because what a remarkable grid this truly was. Let's look at this leaderboard. Number 2 in the world. Up until very recently, I was number 1 in the world, which is just so much fun. Also, shout out to Fierce. Was on the top leaderboard, didn't make it today. It's okay. That's what we have the pod for. Maybe we can study up. One thing, real quick, I want to throw shade to this guy who copied all of my mods. You're not funny. I know this was on purpose. And just for the record, I know it says Smoliv here. I had Zarude here until about noon this morning. So he copied that Zarude too. And then just swapped out my top middle to be a little bit under me on the leaderboard. And then I used my undo to cap him. But I'm just a little bit mad at this guy. That's my little rant. Congrats to number 1. You're awesome. Now let's get into it. So, for the record, I would like to say, before the number 1 effect, as I may call it, high score or low score problems. My camera up was 1%. This Darmanitan was 0%. This Cacturn was 1%. This Spheal was 0%. This Gyarados was 7%. This Incineroar was 11%. So being so low, like I guarantee you, if I had an anonymous account, I don't think as many people would be picking Darmanitan and Spheal. And I mean, this podcast surely doesn't help. I'm gonna see people on the leaderboard using my picks now. It's whatever. That's what I'm here for. Anyway, I'm doing a lot of yapping. Let's just get straight into it. The typings here are Monotype, resistant to Ghost, or sorry, the top row is Monotype, resistant to Ghost, and Gen 3 slash Hoenn, which is an important differentiation. And the left row we have Fire, Water, Grass. Again, I'm pretty sure I did this 9 months ago because Grid reuses grids. Common knowledge. Let's get straight into it. Monotype Fire. This is a really, I mean, it's one of those where you can think of a million different ones, but you just don't want to. You want to make sure you lock in something really, really special. And there was a lot of opportunities to do here. I mean, I'm seeing some amazing things here. Braixen is amazing. I wouldn't have done that. But I mean, Magmortar, Torracat, Ninetales is so rare, shockingly. Castform Sunny, Raboot, Sharkadet, Cinderace Gigantamax. I mean, it's very special. Spoiler alert, I almost also did Cinderace Gigantamax, which is about tied with Darmanitan, but decided against it. But, I mean, Mono Fire, again, this is going to be one of those ones where I just tell you to dig deep, man. You can think of a good Mono Fire type. And worst comes to worst, and, I mean, this is on top of me telling you to learn the Necrozmas every single day of my life. My next best thing is those middle starters, man. Every time I pull out a Drizzle or a Thwackey or a Torracat, it is always so rare, no matter the thing. Doesn't matter if it's monotype. You think, oh, monotype, it's a starter line. No, use that middle Evo. I promise you, I promise you, I promise you. It's going to be a lot, lower than you think it'll be. But I think I was just pulling the classic strategy of typing random letters into the keyboard. Darmanitan popped up. I said, oh, wait, yeah, Darmanitan is Mono Fire type. I busted out Darmanitan. I'll say, if you wouldn't know better, you would think he's firefighting, which one could argue he should be. But anyways, moving on. Fire resistant to Ghost. Now, I'm trying to think of types resistant to Ghost. Again, you can always just think what is super effective against Ghost, and usually they'll resist it. Of course, this doesn't always work. Think Ground and Fire. Ground does not resist Fire type. Things like that, despite it being super effective. But I figured Ghost was probably not very effective against Dark, and as we know, it's easy to remember, resistant to also includes immune, so if it ever says resistant to ground, flying also qualifies here, or in this case, resistant to Ghost also classifies normal types. So really our only picks here, and I believe there were only like 11 or 12 viable picks for this. We need a Fire Dark type or a Fire normal type. There's not very much. There's Chi-Yu, there's Incineroar, which I thought would be very popular, but Incineroar was actually really rare. Houndoom was the most popular, but Pyroar, Chi-Yu, Incineroar. There's not very many great choices here. I mean, it's one of those things where you're going to put it in, and you're going to think, oh, that was a horrible guess by me. And then you finish your grid, and you realize that you actually picked the best one. It's just that yellow color kind of throws you off. I wouldn't worry about it. I'd be happy for yourself. And yeah, I mean, that's a difficult one. There's really, I mean, so little. A normal fire type, I think, is just Pyroar and Pyroar's lower evolution, and Houndoom, I guess. But those are some really, you're not gonna know that. I don't blame you at all for not knowing that. I would consider Incineroar a cop-out answer, but that's just because I know competitive and I know Incineroar so well. Regardless, not a super difficult box, and even if you went most popular, you were only 3% over least popular, or 4, depending on how it lines up at the time. Next up, we have Fire for Gen 3. You could go Primal Groudon here. I mean, I don't think anybody would fault you for it. One thing I found really interesting is the use of Mega Blaziken. I really, really admire how that is so low. I mean, I would never use Mega Blaziken, but again, it's just little things like that where every day I realize, wait a minute, maybe not everybody's like me, you know? Not everybody's anything Mega Blaziken. I mean, Mega Blaziken is better than Mega Camerupt, and I could make a million arguments as to why Mega Camerupt is less common than Blaziken, but that's just not always reflective. I'm not saying, am I saying that in the future am I going to put Mega Blaziken over Mega Camerupt? No, but I'm definitely going to keep in mind that if I don't know anything, if you don't know anything, and all you can think of is Mega Blaziken, put it in. Don't put Blaziken in, but don't put Torchic in, right? But put in Mega Blaziken. I bet it's going to do a lot better than you think it's going to do. I mean, really, and Mega or Primal Groudon, sorry, isn't that bad. It's a little basic. I mean, you may feel cool. I'm not meaning to bash on you. It may feel a little cool that, oh, I know that Groudon actually gets the fire type when he primal evolves. Primal result, whatever. When he primals, he gains the fire type. You're not that cool. Respectfully, most people probably know that. So, Camera Up just came to mind, but again, Mega Blaziken was better. So, why am I even hosting this podcast? Truly, because clearly I don't know anything. But Mega Blaziken and Mega Camera Up are really the only two top tier picks there. You could get away with a Primal Groudon or a Cast Form, but again, I'd rather not. And I actually quite admire the Cast Form pick. I would have never thought that Cast Form was Gen 3. I mean, now that I think about it, I know there's that little bridge with the water where the guy gives you the Cast Form, but still, definitely not one of those things you immediately think. Moving on from Fire type, finally. Sorry, I'm a little bit of a yapper today. We have Monotype Water. There's also, I believe, like 30 something here. There's a million you can do. You can do Cast Form. You can do Wishy Washy, which I love. Basculin, Pukamuku, which is just, mwah, what a pick. I mean, yeah, Feebas, Blastoise Gigantamax is a beautiful pick. There's a lot of places you can go here. Starters, of course, work fine, I'm sure. I mean, the most popular was 5%, right? Even if you went Squirtle here, you would have got 5%. So I bet a Poplio or a Quaxley also would have done wonders here. And I mean, again, the middle evolutions, I'm sure Drizzle, Sobble's evolution would have done amazing. I have a running bit that we always run in Teleon Gigantamax form, but it's not a bad bit because it is really, really rare. Nobody really knows it, and I love Sobble, so anything connected to him, I'll use. This next pick, we have Water Resistant to Ghost. What did we say last time? Dark and Normal. We just hone in on those two. So, Dark Water type. Sharpedo is immediately what I thought, and what a lot of people thought, clearly. Sharpedo, Mega Sharpedo are some pretty obvious ones, but there are some really good picks here. Hisuian Samurott was one of them, as you saw. You know, Carvana, maybe a little bit lower down, like you wouldn't think it is. And again, it's one of those things like with the Squirtle, most popular was 12%, and my best pick in the world as of right now is 9%. So, I mean, even if I say, like, oh, you know, some good picks were Sharpedo, the obvious pick is Sharpedo or Greninja, even if it's obvious, it's still pretty much fine. This is a very evenly spread one. Mega Gyarados is kind of a fun one because I think 99% of the people who would say they have like pretty good knowledge about Pokemon would tell you that Mega Gyarados is Dragon type, and he's not. Mega Gyarados is a Water Dark type. It's not a Dragon type. I've had to explain this to about 1 million people, and they're like, I don't believe you, and they look it up and they're wrong every time. It's okay though. I forgive you, Blair. Mega Gyarados was a good pick here. Samurai Hisuian I really admire. There's some of those where like they do worse than me, and I feel like they should have done better. But that's whatever. Last up is Water Gen 3 Hoenn. Now, I'm about to let you guys in, and does this invalidate my, you know, ability as a host, as a player? Maybe. I wouldn't say so, but let's see what you think about it. I didn't know a water type first introduced in Gen 3. Of course, I knew the whole Mudkip line, including Mega Swampert and Kyogre and Primal Kyogre, but besides that, I was completely in the dark. So, and this is kind of the annoying part about Doku to me, but in reality is a good balancing choice by Doku, is that they don't make things super easy and straightforward. On Grid, I can type in C, and it will give me in Pokedex order down to a certain point every C Pokemon that just starts with a C, something like that. So if I type in some letters and it shows me a medium-sized list of Pokemon, from the top to the bottom, I can create a pretty general scope of where that Pokemon lies generation-wise. So if there's some Pokemon that I know are in Gen 4, and there's some Pokemon that I know in Gen 2, and I type in a couple letters, and you know, Spheal is in the middle of that, and I need a water type first seen in Gen 3. Of course, I know Spheal. I don't know where Spheal's from, but I know everyone loves Spheal. He's a big old ball. I don't know where he's from, but using that, I was actually just able to pin down. I was like, oh, I guess feels from Gen 3, and I clicked it, and it worked flawlessly. I mean, it worked a treat. And that's just, I mean, it's a miracle. I'm filming a podcast today. I mean, that might be one of my best tricks yet. Again, it is very uncommon that you'll see a first scene on any grid, and it's not like there's new grids being made, but sorry, someone honked outside of my house. But it's a pretty good strategy, and it's, spoiler alert, what I used on my bottom right as well. Moving on to grass types, we have monotype grass. Again, I thought Grookey, I thought Thwacky, I thought Rillaboom, I thought Rillaboom Gigantamax form. Any starters, of course. I'm kind of just going on and on here. But I wanted to do something really special, so I really dug deep. And I mean, even some basic things like Superior was so rare. I mean, Serena was so rare. Eldegoss was so rare. Thwacky was just as good. Bounsweet was good. Sometimes you just think a little too hard. I think a little too hard. And I mean, I thought I was the man for picking Capsakid, and it was a whatever pick. Capsakid, I keep in my mind a lot because I think it's always fun whenever something gains a type when it evolves. It kind of scares people off. I mean, you'd be kind of reluctant to put Capsakid because, like, Capsakid, I mean, it means fire, you know, it's spicy, and it evolves into Scovillain, but he's not hot yet. He doesn't have any red on him yet. He's actually a mono grass type, and I believe a couple months ago I learned that, and it just stuck with me. It's about these things sticking with you, and what always helps me, it would help me with that Raticate that I brought up, in the Doku, where I saw it in the TikTok, and I really wanted to use it later. I just told myself over and over, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was like, Alolan Raticate, Alolan Raticate. I thought about that for like 20 full seconds, and now I can't get it out of my head. I think it was the same kind of situation with Capsakid. Moving on, resistant to Ghost Grass. Again, it has to be a dark type or it has to be a normal type. As you saw, I mean, I use Zarude on my Doku. I have Zarude in my mind quite a bit. I mean, sometimes there's some really great boxes that he can fit in that I don't think about, but I don't like to just tell you to use Pokemon, but use Zarude. Zarude is a really good one. It's a dark grass type, and there's two forms. And with something like Aegislash too, when, I mean, unless it's the most niche category ever, like attack is the highest stat or something stupid, a different form will never matter. Zarude Dada versus Zarude, I have no idea what the difference is, but I don't think there's ever a grid where you can't use either. So effectively, it just makes whatever your Zarude pick was going to be cut in half. And I mean, I would always use Dada because I think it being Dada scares other people away. But I'm telling you, podcast listener right now, Zarude Dada will always be a better pick usually than Zarude because there is no noticeable difference, but people will think there is. So I used Zarude there. It was pretty good. As you can see by a buddy over here who copied me, he used it. So it's just a reflection of what my grid looked like before my undo. I ended up switching to Smoliv, which, again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I did think of Smoliv when I was doing this. There was recently a Smoliv community day in Pokemon Go. It was a normal grass type, and I saw it a million times. I went to an ice cream place while I was throwing curveballs at Smoliv and telling my order to the guy up front. It's little things like that that are just hard to forget. I probably looked like a little bit of an impolite patron, but regardless, things like that you remember. Smoliv is a really fun one. Arbvola also, and there is a middle evolution, but I don't know the name of it. Yeah, I mean, not much I can tell you there. Gen 9s are usually great picks. That's why I ran Capsakid, and that's why I ran Smoliv, is just because people don't tend to think about Gen 9s. It's still new, and as long as you're not doing something super basic from Gen 9, like honestly anything. I mean, besides like Meowscarda, genuinely, besides Meowscarda and like Sprigatito, I don't know if anything Gen 9 I would ever call rare. Even its box art legendaries, nobody's using Koraidon and Miraidon. Ever. Ever. So, if you can, you know, flex some of that recent knowledge, resort to Gen 9, because as you'll see on the you'll see this on the most popular leaderboards every day. We've got Gen 1, Gen 3, Gen 3, Gen 1, I don't know, Gen 3, Gen 3, Gen 3, Gen 3. So people are old. People are old heads, and they want to use old mons. Flex your knowledge. Do the Gigantamax form. I mean, Omega's not that old, but, you know, let's pretend we're still young and in elementary school, and that Megas are still new. Anyway, we're on to our very last box, Grass Gen 3. I am not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to be awesome. Of course, I thought about Sceptile's whole line. I went with my new strategy, and I mean, I really wish I would get to employ this more. Typed it in, kind of narrowed it down. I'm pretty sure this comes out in Gen 4. I'm pretty sure this comes out in like Gen 2 or 1. Cacturn was right in the middle of those two. I said, shoot. I guess Cacturn came out in Gen 3. I put it, and it was really rare. It was, I believe it was a unique pick when I picked it. So, yeah, definitely a really fun one. And that'll be it for the podcast today. I'm sorry if it was a long one. I'm really not sure. I don't have the timestamp with me, but I had a lot of fun. It has been a long time. I think kind of my issue was that it took me so long to make these, and it's not just the recording, it's all of the editing after that really kind of threw me off. But I'm going to try to be more efficient, mess up less so I don't have to cut out as much, which should make me, I mean, I don't have to put aside 3 hours to make a new pod today. I can just go home, record it, and basically just render it and be done. So, hoping I'll get to do that more. But anyway, I love and appreciate you all. Check out the YouTube if you're on Spotify. Check out the Spotify if you're on YouTube. I'll see you guys later. And I didn't get a chance to use them today, but remember, study the Necrozma forms. They're the same as Lunala and Solgaleo. They're all Psychic type in some way. I love Necrozma. See you guys later.